Sixers looking very focused in the second half. Maxey looking for more. He's got it!
Daniel House will up and under on the lob, and then flies in with the emphatic one-hand jam.
Niang looking for more from outside. Bang! Bang! George Niang!
Joel, the process
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Pick Swap Podcast. I'm here with my guy, Tweets by Zoe, today. You know him from the Broad and Forever podcast, as well as the Corner 3 newsletter from the Rice to Ricky Sanchez. Been a long-time fan, excited to get talking. So, Zoe, how we doing today?
Going good, man. Thank you again for having me. Really appreciate it. I know this has been a busy week for everybody. We are, less than 72 hours out from another spin at it in this playoff world. So should be a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most wins since the 0-1 season. We got the NBA's leading scorer in Joel Embiid, the NBA's leading passer in James Harden. It's been a weird kind of vibe just surrounding this team. I understand the skepticism. We've all been there. We've seen how things go. But so to start off with, how are you just feeling about the Sixers team right now and kind of your outlook heading into the playoffs?
It's changed from the 1-4 start. I genuinely thought that Doc Rivers wouldn't survive the first month of the season. Now, we get into, I would say, post All-Star break, and they go on that really big run, and then they string together those 8 and 9 and 10 in a row win streaks, and you start to see quickly that they figured out how to play together, and more specifically, Harden and Embiid figured out how to play together, right? So, my outlook has changed from 1-4 impossible play-in to I genuinely believe they could beat the Celtics in the second round of the playoffs. I'm not ready to pick them to beat the Bucks. The Bucks are, for my estimation, I feel like the Bucks are a better team than the Celtics. They're really, really, really tough to beat, and that would be a really, really tough series. But I do think the Sixers will wind up playing the Celtics in the second round and wind up beating them.
Yeah, I love that, and I'm ready to dig deeper into that too. And yeah, it has been a wild ride this year, the season and the trajectory that the Sixers have been on. I mean, such a cold start, and it's kind of been this way across the NBA. Like, it almost feels like it's like an 82-game preseason at this point.
It's been a wild year. It's been a wild year across the board. You're right, man. I feel like I think that, so they just signed on to another CBA. I think that gives them like another 8 years. So we're not going to see a shortened season for at least another 10 years or so. But I think they're going to go that route, especially with the play-in, and two with the midseason tournament. I think that a shortened season is going to make so much more sense for them in the coming years. So I would imagine that, like, if it's not on the table now, that in the next 4 or 5 years it will be. It's a long season. It's a really long season, man. As we've seen, the Sixers themselves have had what feels like 4 different seasons in one.
Yeah, 100%. And I would love for that to be the case, for them to swing to a shortened season. I think it would be better for the game, for each game to matter more, and for guys to be into it. The load management era, which we are firmly in right now, has really taken control of things. And I mean, even looking at this year, the top 3 MVP candidates, none of them playing 70 games. And that's something unheard of, and games have been such a knock, especially against Joel Embiid when looking at it. And Joel, obviously, we've seen the odds shift completely. It looks like he is in the driver's seat, especially as these votes start to leak out. Are you officially kind of accepting that he's going to win MVP, or is there a part of you that is still nervous about it?
I hope this doesn't sound weird, but I feel like the Zach Lowe vote is what officially put me over the top. I felt like Zach Lowe, that has a scribe of people who follow him, and I feel like if his world believes that Embiid is the MVP, then that pretty much seals the deal.
Mm-hmm.
I did think that there was 4 weeks ago when him and Harden were missing a couple of games, and they had that not so good West Coast trip. I was like, this is it. Like they're probably. I was like, they're not. He's not going to win it. Like he may never win it now.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it was some skill, some conventional wisdom. Jokic missed I think 15 games or so this year, and like specifically, he missed almost the same exact stretch that Joe missed. So like that was in our favor. Obviously, Giannis had the wrist thing for some parts of the year, so he missed a bunch of games. So I just think that, like you just said, man, it really was the combination of all three of those guys not playing an 82-game season that ironically wound up helping Joe out. Like, all three of them playing less than a full 82 wound up working in Joe's favor.
Yeah, totally. And kind of a similar mindset for you. For me, it was when I started to see the ringer votes come in and guys like Ryan Russillo and Bill Simmons, when they're cashing on the Embiid side, I was like, okay, this is happening.
Yeah.
And I entered the season kind of the mindset that I just didn't think it was ever going to happen. I thought last year was the peak opportunity for Joel to win an MVP, and it didn't happen. We saw it swing to Jokic. I'm very happy to be wrong about that. And especially as much as Joel, I also hate how much it's become like uncool to care about it. It's like you should want to win it. These are important awards. And there's the quote that came out today from Joel kind of harping on that it's like it validates his work and things like that, which is awesome. That he absolutely deserves that. It's cool to see that. And I personally like that he's kind of still competing for it as much as like Jokic and Giannis. Giannis, not as much. Mainly Jokic is kind of brushing it off. But do you agree with that? You kind of think it's cool he's going for it and that he deserves it because, well, not because of that, but you know what I mean?
You know what? I'm glad that that Rachel Nichols interview came out. I'm happy that he said it. I know last year he said he doesn't care about it, but like he said himself, that was BS.
Yeah.
I think that I think he was more political when he said that because he knew at that time he wasn't going to get it. But I'm happy to know that it does matter to him. I think it matters to a lot of those guys. I think
for sure.
You saw. I mean, John Morant was like half playingly retweeted his shock at that people were choosing Evan Mobley for Defensive Player of the Year, over his guy Triple J. But I think that these awards matter to a lot of guys, man, and they should.
Yeah.
Because to be perfectly honest, you're talking about the implications that something like that has. Contract, endorsement, your say in the locker room. Like this goes a long way in one, how people talk about you, and two, how your career and your future set up. People aren't walking around with MVP trophies like outside of LeBron and and the two that Giannis have and the two that Jokic has. Like in this decade, guys aren't walking around saying, "Oh, here's my dusty MVP trophy." Like they mean something. It means that you were that year, your peers and the media that covers the league thought that you were the best player in the NBA that season. That's an incredible feat.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. And especially with the contract ties and things like that, and just legacy. Like when you look back on a career, these things matter. Those are the little bullet points next to your name on your Hall of Fame resume or whatever. And that was one of my biggest concerns with things is like, if Jokic were to win a third one this year, and we kind of look back on things and at this era and like Jokic has 3, Giannis has 2, and Embiid has 0, like to me, that just would have felt wrong. And I'm happy that it is kind of trending towards that way. And it just is straight up and awesome to see Joel develop into the player that he is. I mean, he's a miles different player and person than he was when he came into the NBA, especially with the mid-range shot, that becoming so automatic and opening things up for the Sixers offense. Like think about when he was fresh out of Kansas and he obviously had his 2 years that he was off and working through. Like this was a guy who was known for his defense as a shot blocker and had kind of all the tools. He was by no means like an automatic jump shooter. And the way that he's weaponized himself to really just be a mid-range killer and just like almost a Kevin Durant, like in his approach to the game is incredible. So yeah, I cannot be more blown away with his growth this year, and the Sixers have absolutely followed his lead. So to lead into my next point here is alongside him is James Harden and adjusting to that. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we've seen Joel's back-to-back best scoring seasons of his career alongside James Harden. So what have you seen from kind of the duo between Harden and Embiid, and how connected they are and how much Harden has helped to unlock him further?
I think they look more comfortable, and I think they look more comfortable on the court without each other, which is incredibly important for the short periods of time that they are without each other on the court. I mean, in the playoffs, they're probably going to, hopefully, I mean, I know we say this all the time, but I really hope that Doc staggers, their minutes so we don't go back to an all bench lineup and, they leave the court up 10 and come back down 6. Like, I think that, but yeah, for whatever reason, they continue to look more comfortable on the court without each other, and more importantly, with each other. And I think the reason is they have a better understanding for each other's sweet spots, each other's games. I feel like when they run that pick and roll, the reason why it's so successful and why it's so unstoppable is because they have this knack for when the other person needs the ball or when the other person is going to get rid of the ball. Like Embiid knows exactly what to do when Harden has it at the top of the key. Harden knows exactly what kind of cut Embiid is going to make, where he likes the ball at. If he gets it to him on the nail, he knows exactly what kind of spin he's going to take, and vice versa. I feel like Embiid knows when Harden's bringing the ball up, if he's got a one-on-one, he's going to do his dribble and then ISO, and it's a pull-up three. Like, I feel like that is what I've seen this year and, up until now. And also, really, knock on wood, like, they've just been healthier.
Yeah.
They're the calf and heel injuries aside, both of them have just been healthier this year. And they've had more time together. I think time is so important. I know last year we tempered expectations because Harden did play only like 15 regular season games or something like that. But it mattered, as we saw in the playoffs. They just didn't have any chemistry. They won that first round against the Raptors because they were just a more talented team. But that second round against the Heat, obviously with Joe being hurt aside, they still just didn't look like themselves. Harden definitely didn't look like himself. So that's what I'm looking forward to for him, man. I'm actually looking forward to him looking more like himself. He does look in shape. He's got a little bit of bounce left. He's beating guys off the dribble. I think he's gonna look like himself again.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that as well. And it's cool they get to kind of fight their playoff demons together because they both have some negative rep that kind of sticks to them throughout their time in the NBA, each kind of for different reasons coming up to failures. I do think Harden deserves more credit than he's given as far as what a buzzsaw the Western Conference was, and to take that Golden State team to 7, things like that. I do think he goes underappreciated and gets written off as more of a playoff choker than he actually is. But yeah, I would love for him to fully prove that wrong this year. One of the things that I think is very cool about the Harden and Embiid duo is when you look around the NBA at these best duos, the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Browns, the Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. To me, it feels like the Embiid and Harden duo is the only one that like fully maximize each other, that they kind of bring out the best in each other. It's not as much like your turn, my turn, or ISO ball, or allowing the other guy to do the thing. It's like the two-man game between them is something that I really can't even compare across the NBA, because both of them have such a just immense gravity. And for me, that's one thing that has stood out about Harden since he got here. Even last year when he's definitely been a significantly better version of himself this year, but even last year when he didn't quite have that pop, like we would see him getting doubled 30 feet from the basket. And that to me, like open eyes, like, okay, this is what spacing is supposed to look like on an NBA basketball court. This is how things are supposed to. So yeah, I am optimistic about how he's going to look in these playoffs. I've been super impressed with his ability to blow by, get to the rim this year for sure. So yeah, how much responsibility, I guess, would you put on Harden as far as like, we know when things slow down, it is more difficult to play through a center. Do you think Harden's going to have to step up and into more of a primary role?
Oh, 1,000%. So I think that in this present day NBA, it's incredibly tough to build around a center and to play through one. It's going to be paramount for Harden to kind of take the reins a bit, to be a maestro, really, to make sure Tobias is where he needs to be, to make sure Joe is comfortable where is where he's getting the ball at. And he's going to be really, really, really important in helping conduct Tyrese Maxey, right? I would love to see Maxey have a really good first round series. Like, the Nets have a bunch of long guys on the perimeter who I'm sure are going to give him a bit of trouble. So he's going to have to use his speed. He's going to count his speed a lot to get past those guys. A lot of those guys are taller than him. Like, Cam Johnson is almost 6'10", and Mikal is 6'8", 6'9". So like a lot of those guys are bigger, but he's also faster, than most of them. So it's going to be that's going to be on Harden to kind of continue to reiterate that and drive it into Maxey. So Harden for sure is going to have to be the quarterback of that offense. I think Joe and a mixture of Joe and PJ Tucker are going to be the maestros on defense. But when it comes to offense and pace, it's going to definitely be Harden.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And as a credit to Joel for him kind of expanding his game, being more perimeter oriented and developing that area, it's definitely made things more possible. Yeah. But there's just some hurdles of playing through a center in the playoffs. We've seen it in years past, and he's done, like I said, a great job to combat that, make it easier. But they still exist and stuff you can't really get around. You did bring up Tyrese Maxey there, and I did want to discuss him a little bit. A bit of a rocky year for Maxey. He's kind of seen his role move around a little bit. We saw the off the bench experiment for a little. It's kind of strange because he's had such a meteoric rise and has had such success like in the NBA that we kind of haven't seen him really struggle yet. I think he's dealt with it pretty well, and it's been an interesting year for him. So what is kind of your thoughts on him throughout the regular season, and what are you hoping to see from him come playoff time?
Well, I think it's tough. Here's a guy who wasn't really hurt that first year at Kentucky. He was, and then they missed the tournament. That was the COVID year. And then, last year he was relatively healthy. And then, this year he's battled some injuries, some nagging stuff. And I think he's, really mentally he's just had to work his way through that. He's had to work his way through being a six man again. He's had to work his way through playing hurt. I'm sure there's been some times where, he said, look, like my foot doesn't feel right. Like, look, like you can't hurt it anymore. Or, look, like you're probably going to have some pain in it for a while. Like, you have to learn how to play hurt. So I think he's had to learn all that stuff. He's had to learn how to play hurt. He's had to learn how to swallow his pride a bit. And he's had to learn how to speak up. He had to learn how to speak up for himself. So I think it's been good that he's experienced these adversities because he's a guy who's going to be incredibly important. In this round, definitely, but especially in the second round. And again, assuming that the Celtics take care of business against the Hawks, like the Celtics have been a house of horrors for him. So I would love to see him exercise a few of those demons, in a second round series. So I think that he will continue to right the ship. I think he's someone who is absolutely a gamer. He gets it. He plays hard, goes out there with his head up, and he goes full speed. So I'm not worried about him from a motivation standpoint. I just hope that guys like PJ and Harden are in his ear, kind of directing him on to how to conduct himself in a playoff series.
Yeah, and I liked your point about learning how to speak up for himself because there is the, closed mouths don't get fed. And there are times where he becomes a little too much of an afterthought in this offense, which is a waste because of how dynamic he is, his skill set and what needs to be done. I've loved pairing him with James Harden too and having them alongside each other. I want to see more of that. That was my main issue with kind of the off the bench thing is we know Maxey is not the most superb playmaker and a guy who isn't known for running the offense. He's a guy who's there to get buckets. He's there to score, and he's very effective at that. So having him on the court with Harden allows him to kind of take those responsibilities as a playmaker off his shoulder, allows him to just do his thing, and I've loved that. So I do hope to see that come playoff time, and it will be interesting to watch how things are staggered. To jump into the playoffs fully, Sixers facing off with the Nets, first game on Saturday. Is there any concern for you with this opening round series, or do you think just smooth sailing right through?
I think that there will be – I initially had a gentleman's sweep. I don't want to go back on that, but I could see it being a sweep. I think that I don't think there'll be any problems at all.
Yeah.
And when I say problems, like I know the Nets are going to fight. They're
Mm-hmm.
tough. You know, they have a bunch of guys who can shoot the lights out, especially when they get hot. But I think that they are a team that's over. They are overmatched. You know, Nick Claxton is a very formidable player, but Joe averages 33 and like 7 against him. So you know he's going to get 33 and 7 every night if we assuming Joe sticks to his averages. I think that they are. If you just go up and down the roster, like I said, they're fun on the wings, but outside of that, they don't really have anybody who um, who like you take a step back and say we're gonna make sure we shut this guy down outside of McCall. You know, I think McCall is every bit of the guy there.
Yeah.
So he is someone that I think initially you'll probably see a guy like Tobias Harris on, who we didn't even talk about, dude. But I think this is, you know, Harden and Embiid aside, this is the most important playoffs of his career.
Yeah.
He's going into a summer where he's finally a tradable asset.
Yeah.
You know, so like this is kind of it, buddy. Like if you know, it's time to show and prove. Right? The time to show and prove was 3 years ago, but seriously, the time to show and prove is this summer, is this playoff stretch, you know. But you know, that aside, I think that, you know, again, the Nets are gonna fight, they're gonna put on a good show, but I wouldn't be surprised if a gentleman sweep turned into just 4 straight.
Yeah, I like that. And yeah, about Tobias, like it's been frustrating this year specifically because it felt like early on, like he got it. Like he was locked in, he was playing his role, he was catching and shooting quick decisions, playing good defense. And it just, as the year has gone on, feel like he's regressed from that version of Tobias Harris that we kind of were hoping for. I'm hoping this kind of time off, he can get back to just, you know, lock in, making the right decisions, playing his role, because that's not naturally who he is as a basketball player or who he wants to be. But it is admirable that he's trying to learn that he did. And I would love for him to get back to it. One strong playoff run, and all is forgiven in the Tobias Harris world and the Sixers world with Twitter and everything like that. So I would love for that to be the case. And yeah, it is interesting, this Nets matchup. I don't think this is one that the Sixers match up particularly well. I mean, the Nets have a ton of just big, versatile, switchable guys, the Dorian Finney-Smiths, the Cam Johnsons, and Mikal Bridges. You can go down the list. Nick Claxton, I think, is awesome. I'm a huge fan of his and think he is a guy who will be in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation when you look forward a little bit. But I agree. I think there's just such a talent gap and top-end talent that they can't compete. I mean, the Nets, it's been a roller coaster for them even more than the Sixers, especially of late. So, I'm locking in Sixers in 5, but I do think this is kind of a good warm-up for the Sixers to be forced to match up with these kind of perimeter guys, especially when looking ahead as they have to face off with Boston. So while Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges are no Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, a similar kind of construct, and I think they're going to be able to try things. So do you think that's something that could rev them up and prepare them for that? And talk to me a little about your outlook for Boston.
I do too. I think that you know, it'll be interesting, man, because I would love to see them prove us right. You know, I think a lot of us are saying 4 or 5 games. I would love to see them just sweep them, just sweep them. You know, take care of business, because you know, on to the next topic. The Celtics are. It's going to be a tough series, man. I think the Sixers will win in 7 games, but it will be a very tough series. My outlook for them really is they just gotta stay healthy. Robert Williams, you know, if he stays healthy, like if they have to depend on Al Horford for an extended length of time, that could be the only thing that trips them up. Like Horford's just not who he used to be for them. Ironically, sometimes he looks more like the guy he was for us. But I will say, yeah, I think health could trip them up. I know Marcus Smart's been dinged up at times this year. You know, and Jaylen Brown has been dinged up. You know, he's had the face thing. He cut his thumb, I think they said 2 weeks ago, you know, picking up glass from a vase that broke. Like we're stuff like that. But I don't see any way the Hawks give them a series. I think that is gonna be a sweep. Okay. I would be pleased with a 6-game series because that means that we get at least another day to relax and reset
Yeah.
before the series starts. But I had that series ending in 4-5 tops as well. And then I think the winner of this series is going to be after 7 games. And I think they probably whoever wins this series, whoever wins the Sixers Celtics series is probably going to be your NBA champion.
Yeah.
Um, I feel strongly about that.
Wow, I like that take. And yeah, I've kind of said for the past couple months now, my take has been whoever wins the East wins the NBA
Oh
championship.
yeah,
That
1,000%. Yep.
Yeah, I think the top 3 teams are across the NBA are in the Eastern Conference, and that being the Bucks, Celtics, and Sixers. So, yeah, it is it is not the timeline has not kind of led to an easy path for the Sixers, but
Yeah.
if
You know what though?
Mhm.
Yeah, and this is not hot takey. There is a world where I do feel like the Cavs give the Bucks more than they can chew. I think the Cavs are really good, man. I know that
Yeah.
they may be. I listen. I think they may be a year away. They might be a year early. But man, I just think that they're really good, man. They can beat anybody.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, I would want to face them more than the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. But I'm telling you, I think that those guys, they're not scared. I'll put it that way. I'm not ready to pick them to beat the Bucks. So I wouldn't do that, but
Mhm.
they're tough, man. Spider Mitchell, there's Garland. Like that's a tough backcourt. Evan Mobley is no slouch. Jared Allen, and like you go down the list, and like there's a bunch of guys who one they've played in the playoffs before, like, and two they're guys who are out for respect. I think that um similar. I think the Knicks are going to give them a series. Like
Mhm.
I don't think anybody like we just said it, but I think nobody in this Eastern Conference is going to get it easy.
Yeah.
I think outside of the few teams who are going to have a pretty quick first round, I think once you get into the second round and the Eastern Conference Finals, whoever progresses will have certainly earned it.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. And I agree on your Cavs point too. I'm excited to see what they cook up defensively because
Me
they
too.
can do some real interesting things with
Me too.
Giannis as far as
Yeah.
packing a little wall when they get Jared Allen, Evan
Yep.
Mobley. There's a lot of they have some good pieces to be able to work
They
things
do.
in.
They do.
Giannis is go ahead.
And it was no. I was going to say to piggyback your point. There was a point in the season where they were the best defensive team in the league, man. And so
Yeah.
right before Jared Allen got hurt, but I think that you bring up a really good point. I'm interested to see, like you said, they typically you can pack that wall almost like what it almost worked, almost like what the Suns did against Giannis. Is you build that wall and see and basically just dare them to do a lot of stuff and see what
Yeah.
happens. So I'm interested to see how they play that. I know Evan Mobley is just as tall and maybe half as mobile. So we'll see. It's gonna be a fun series though.
Yeah, definitely. And we've touched on a lot of this here. For as far as Sixers specific, we talked about the main guys with James Harden, Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, even Tobias Harris in there. Are there any other guys that you would look at as kind of X factors for this team? I know PJ Tucker gets a lot of love in that conversation. DeAnthony Melton's been great this year. Which of these kind of guys do you think need to step up come playoff time, which we are here?
I'll give you two. Melton and PJ Tucker for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think similar for similar reasons. The defense, the intensity, the toughness. Like this is a team last year where we all said just got again Embiid injury aside, they got pumped in the playoffs. The Heat beat them up, and they were the tougher team, and their team they looked like they wanted more. And then last summer they went out and got guys like Dan House and PJ and D'Anthony Melton specifically to get tougher, to get more, to get stronger on the perimeter, to get louder in the locker room. So I look at those guys and say, this is finally a time to show and prove. I think a guy like PJ Tucker is going to be incredibly important. I think his leadership, his just his general basketball knowledge and kind of the mindset, man. I'm so interested to see how they approach this series as opposed to when they didn't have a guy like PJ Tucker,
Yeah.
because this is what you got him for. Like, this is it. He's an NBA champion. He's a guy that's played in so many tough basketball games, so many tough basketball playoff series. Like, I'm really interested to see what rubs off in terms of what he says to them and if he's able to get them on the right mindset.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, PJ Tucker's been a guy handpicked by Joel Embiid at the press conference
That's
at
what
the
right.
podium. Yeah,
Right.
saying, bring me that guy, let me play with him while
Right.
he's here. And as a credit to PJ, I know there's been stretches where he's been dragged through the mud and some real concerns from people, but he has stepped up in big games. I mean, there was the Nuggets matchup, which he faced off with Jokic and changed that game by allowing Embiid to patrol the paint and do his thing. The Bucks against the Celtics, when he's hitting 3 threes, he had 16 rebounds against the Bucks. So PJ Tucker, I do have faith in him to step up when it is the big moments, and that's why he's here. This was not a signing that was going to pay off in the regular season. He is here for the playoffs. That's why he's brought in, and now we're going to see it. And yeah, I agree with D'Anthony Melton. I want to see the all chaos lineup too. I need to see the Paul Reed, the Daniel House, give me the Harden and athletes lineup, and let's run. I like that as a nice kind of change of pace, especially when there is the Embiid and Harden lineup. For all that I have given them praise and stuff. Athleticism and pace is definitely not words that I would connect to kind of those two as a duo. They're much more calculated and smooth in their approach. So I think it's cool to kind of have that as like a change up to throw at teams where we are running and gunning. You got Harden throwing full court passes. And Paul Reed, I mean, I can't say enough about how he's actually becoming more of a normal basketball player and shaking it out. Obviously a huge friend of the Ricky too. So do you think Paul Reed is locked in for the backup center chance? Is there any chance that Doc Rivers throws as a curveball and mixes that up?
Big friend of the Ricky. No, I think that he's the guy, man. I know Doc loves Denman, but I think it's got to be B-ball Paul.
Yeah.
Really. So I'm this I think this might be the most important point we make on this pod today, man. It's not like you're playing him for half the game. He's only playing for like 6 minutes.
Yes.
You only need him for 6 minutes. And if your biggest issue is that he fouls a lot, then you're going about this all wrong. You have to play him.
Yeah.
If he fouls out, who cares, dude? Like, it's only 6 minutes. You're not playing him for any more than that. You're just playing him, and so Embiid can get extended amount of rest. That's literally it. It doesn't have to be overthinking it to the point where you're like, oh, well, it's not the Paul Reed victory tour, blah, blah, blah. Like, dude, please don't kill us like that. Like, it's only for short bursts of time so Embiid can rest and get back in. Like, I guarantee you, if you add up the real-time minutes that he'll be on the court, it won't be more than 20 minutes. Like, it just can't be, oh, well, we got to go somewhere else. It's got to be Dedmon. And like, shout out to, listen, Dwayne Dedmon he's done what he's been asked to do these past couple of games. Shout out to him, but it's got to be B-Ball Paul. And you can't, it just can't be he fouls too much. That's unacceptable. Who cares? We don't, if he fouls out, he fouls out.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And that's been the biggest frustration for me. Like, obviously, you would prefer him not be fouling, but dude, the best case scenario is he plays like 12 minutes. So if you want to use all 6 fouls in 12 minutes, go for it, man. Be my guest.
Exactly right. That's exactly what our collective point is. Listen, you want to foul out in 12 minutes? That's great. 12 minutes that Embiid hasn't had to be on the court. You used up all 6 fouls. We'll see you tomorrow. Like, we'll see you in game 2. Like, who even cares, man? I'm totally on board with that. It should be B-Ball Paul.
Yeah. And I do hope that's the case. There is, I feel, a great deal of responsibility on Doc Rivers for this year, almost a little more than other years. I mean, because, people are itching to get his neck and kind of obviously are. I will say, I think Doc Rivers has done a pretty good job this year. I've been pretty impressed with what he's done as far as rotations, decision-making throughout this year. There's definitely a part of me that is nervous that's going to change come postseason when it matters most, because I do think the Sixers team is constructed where they have all the pieces, but it's not as fluent. Like, there's going to be games where guys like Georges Niang are necessary, and then there's going to be games where you straight up just cannot play Georges Niang. So having a feel for that is something that is all on the shoulders of Doc Rivers. What's your confidence level as far as that goes?
I give him my relationship with Doc is pretty simple. Like I think that he is he's better than 99% of this fan base gives him credit for. But I also feel like if they were to lose this in these playoffs in the second round, he'd be the first one out, and they will be rightfully. So I'm on the fence with him. I think that he certainly has a great staff. He has people that he trusts on there. I think that he realizes his legacy is on the line. Here's a guy who I'm sure is tired of hearing about you only won because you had 2 Hall of Famers, you know. So I don't want to say I trust him to do the right thing. I just want to say that I think that they have finally Daryl Morey has finally built a team to where it's almost impossible for him to mess it up. If that makes sense. You know, like he's had to remove almost all the doubt. Like, all right, look, like I've given you a 8-person rotation. You can't mess this up. Right. So like we'll see. We'll see. But like that's how I feel. I feel like Daryl Morey quietly to himself was like, all right, like what can I do to make sure he has at least a top 8 guys so that he can't in no way can he mess this up. You know what I mean? Like so like that's where I feel like we are. I feel like actually I'll make it 9 because I feel like a guy like Jalen McDaniels is going to be incredibly important too. He's been shooting the ball well, especially these past 3 games. You know, regular season, he shot the ball well. He's another long guy on the perimeter. He plays defense. You know, him and his brother are cut from that same mold. So you know that's it. He's another guy who will be incredibly important. I actually think that he should get all the Niang minutes. I just think he can do. Very simple fact. I just think that if Jordan Yang isn't making shots, you don't hear from Jordan Yang.
Yeah.
He can't. He's too slow on defense. He can't do anything else on offense. So if he's not shooting or if he's not making shots, he's really no good to you that night. And I just feel like McDaniels just offers more. Like if he's not making shots, he's still playing, you know, he's still playing great defense. He's still playing the passing lanes. He's still got a little bit of juice so he can get to the get to the rack and possibly get to the foul line. But like so that's my reason there. I think that hopefully, you know, Doc will have some leniency when it comes to that pairing. But yeah, he's another guy who I think will be really important.
Yeah, totally agree. And Doc has shown more trust in McDaniels than I've expected since he got here. He's given him a little leash, given him some real opportunities to prove it, and he has. So I've been very happy to see that, excited by it. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, especially matching up with the Celtics, I think there's going to be stretches where McDaniels has to take a turn guarding whether it's Tatum or Brown, possibly for an extended period of time. I think there's a real chance that he ends up as one of their best options guarding them. So he's going to play a key role in this team. And we can get ready to wrap things up, but I guess my final question is, so do you think this could be the year?
I do think this is the year, man. I I feel like there's a bunch of reasons, but I think this is the year because they have no choice, right? Like there's way more at stake than it used to be. I feel like last year there was a tiny bit, you know, there was like, all right, like this was a transition year, you know, Joe was hurt, so on and so forth. But this year, I don't think will line up. I don't think it'll line up any more perfect, to be honest. Like it's going to be tough, but it's the playoffs, right? I feel like tough. Also, saying something's tough when it's the playoffs is kind of relative because the Lakers have a tough road. Like the Nuggets are the 1 seed, and they have a tough road. You know what I mean? Like the Nuggets will, and if the Nuggets make it to the finals, they will have beaten the Warriors and the Grizzlies. So like everybody's gonna have a tough road. So I think you just have to put that in perspective. It's not like one team is gonna have it easier than you think. Like we knew this at the beginning of the season though. What did we say? They're gonna have to go through one of or probably both Boston and Milwaukee to make it to the finals. What do you think Milwaukee's saying? Milwaukee's saying, well, we got to make it. We got to get through Philly and Boston. Like they're saying the same thing. It's just, it's just that it's a reality. and I think that these guys finally have the reality. I think this is the best Joel Embiid year that we've seen, and that we're gonna see. I'm not saying he won't be an MVP candidate next year. He will. But I think this is the best version of him that we have. I think that they're finally in the position to capitalize.
Yeah, totally. And we obviously don't have the full story behind the scenes, but it looks like the healthiest that he'll enter the playoffs that I've seen. So huge positive there. So I appreciate you for hopping on and talking with me. Let everybody know where they can find you at.
Yeah, man. Again, thank you for having me, man. Big fan of you. So good luck. I know busy week for you guys. So appreciate you bringing me on to take in some of the joy. But yeah, man, you can find me on Twitter at tweets_by_Zo, on Instagram at 2xdope, right to RickySanchez.com/newsletter, Broad and Forever podcast with my guy Seamus. So all those good things, man. Link with me, hit me up. I'll be, joining in the fray during this playoff run. You'll hear or see a lot of me in the next 6 weeks, hopefully longer. But yeah, man, again, thank you for having me, Sean. I really appreciate it. This is the year, man. It's going to be hard, but we'll get it done.
Yeah, I love it. And yeah, truly one of the best follows on Sixers Twitter or Philadelphia area right now. So. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thank you guys all for tuning in. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I will talk with you next time, hopefully with some positive vibes about how the playoffs are going.